Good evening, everyone. This is Amanda Arnold with Credit Union of Georgia, and we are going to get started on our home buying seminar tonight. First, we want to thank everyone for signing up to attend the seminar and for submitting questions ahead of time. We'll be responding to those questions throughout the presentation, but there's also a chat feature in the box, usually on the bottom of the screen. It could be on the top of your screen, and feel free to type in questions as they come to you, and we'll respond to those throughout the webinar today. I am going to introduce our panel of experts that we have here today. Well, first I'm going to go over the agenda of what our plan is, and then I'll introduce our panel of experts. So we're going to do some introductions just so you know who you're listening to today. We're going to first talk about how much home you can afford, followed by credit requirements, the importance of a realtor, the home buying process, getting a home appraisal as well as a home inspection, how to work with a closing attorney, the closing attorney's responsibilities, and then home buying tips. And then we'll have questions and answers at the end, but we'll also be discussing those throughout the presentation today. Here is your panel of experts that will be you'll be listening to throughout the presentation today. First, we have Joe Minna. He is a mortgage originator here at Credit Union of Georgia. And then we have Bakari Nelson. He's also a mortgage originator here at Credit Union of Georgia. And then down in the bottom left corner, we have Rebecca Cooper. She is a realtor with Cooper Southern Homes with Atlanta Community. And then we have Alan Rainwater. He is a home appraiser with Allen Rainwater Appraisers. We have Tim Reed. He is a home inspector with Open Eye Home Inspections. And then we will have Willie Phelan. He is the closing attorney with Sherman and Phelan. And so I will turn this over to Joe and Bakari to get us started.
Thanks, Amanda. The first thing that we want to get to is just some benefits of using your credit union to get your mortgage loan. We do offer very personalized service. We will meet you at any one of our branches if needed. And we're always available even after hours. The old banking hours from 9 to 5 don't exist anymore, but Bakari and I both work after hours and on weekends if you need anything. So we're always available for you. If we don't get back to you right away, we will get back to you if it's on a Sunday morning or something. We try and be available as much as we can via email or text message or live on the phone. I've been doing mortgages for the past 25 plus years, and pretty much everyone in our department has at least 10 plus years of service. That's important. I'm not going to say that we've seen everything, but we sure have seen a lot. So we're here to assist in your home buying process and make sure there's no gotchas along the way. We do offer an online application. We will walk you through that. It's very simple. We do not ask you for your social security number or date of birth on the online application, just for your protection. It's not like the whole world doesn't know what your social security number and date of birth is, but we try and keep that private if we can. We do offer closings at any one of our branches or sometimes at a realtor's office or whatever's convenient for you, the buyer. And we will work with you on that as well. Our closing attorney does travel. So if it's more convenient to close at your home or at your new house, we've done that several times to close at the new house. We can do that as well. Our rates you'll find that are either at or below what the market is, and we have very flexible terms. We offer 30-year fixed rates, 20-year, 15, even a 70-year loan. We also offer adjustable rate mortgages, but the way the market is now, adjustable rate mortgages are higher than the 30-year fixed. That's just the kind of world that we live in, but it's just because they call it inverted yield curve, and that's one of the reasons you can borrow the money short term at a higher rate than you can long term. But okay, first thing we do in the mortgage process is once we talk on the phone, we will then what I like to do is get you pre-approved over the phone. It takes about 5 minutes. I ask you what your income is. That would be your gross income. That's before Uncle Sam takes half of it. So we get your gross income for you and a wife or spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever it is. We get the total household income, and then we look at your monthly expenses. Monthly expenses would be any car loan payments, student loan payments, minimum credit card payments. So have that information ready when you call in, if you can. And over the phone, we can pretty much get you pre-qualified for a dollar amount that most times is more than what you want to spend. But the first thing we do is once we get you pre-approved, we will send you the link to do the loan application. It's also at our website. You can just do the application online. It comes to us electronically. And then once we receive that, we touch base and say, hey, we've received your application. Everything looks good. If you do have a house under contract, we will then start the processing of your file. And processing is simply ordering the appraisal, which you'll hear from one of our appraisers. We order title work, and you'll hear from our closing attorney at the end of the presentation and let me know what the process is there. And then we will gather your finances, your pay stubs, your W-2s. If you're self-employed, we'll ask for your tax returns. We also look at where the money's coming from for the down payment. If you're selling a home, we know that's where the money's going to come from usually. Then we'll ask for a closing statement. But we will walk through the process with you and make it as easy as possible. Once we have all the information gathered, we then actually give your information to our underwriter, who's 10 minutes or 10 steps from my desk, and he will review the file, and we will set you up to close, and then we fund the loan on the day of closing. So it's a pretty simple process. There's not a lot of hands in the file, which makes us very efficient. We can close a loan in as quick as 2 weeks if needed. And that's real important when you're negotiating a contract, because I always tell my members a potential seller is more willing to deal with someone who can close in 2 weeks versus someone who can close in 2 months. So that's real important. The next thing that we'll do is we're going to calculate how much you can afford. And that's what I talked about in the beginning. Is we will look at your gross monthly income and look at your payments, your car payments, student loan payments, and credit card payments. What I like to do is I will take about 40% of your gross monthly income and then subtract out any monthly car notes, student loans, credit cards, minimum credit card payments. And whatever that figure is, I then plug that in as a payment and then solve for X. That X would be how much we could finance. It's a simple calculation. We kind of work backwards. And like I say, most times the amount that you get approved for is way more than what you want to spend. So that's basically what we do on the, when we first get your application and do the pre-qualification process. We will then send you a pre-approval letter. You will give that to your realtor or to the seller. And I say that's your quote unquote ticket to ride. That's something that you give to them when you submit the contract. They know that they're dealing with someone who's been pre-approved by their credit union and will be able to close quickly. So that really helps in the home buying process. And Rebecca Cooper, our realtor, she'll get into that in a little bit as well. Bakari, you want to talk about the credit requirements?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Bakari, and talk about credit requirements and what it takes to qualify for a mortgage with the Credit Union of Georgia. And here in lending, we talk about the 3 C's in lending. Talk about the 3 C's in lending, and the first one is credit. That entails the credit score, any derogatory credit, look at the length of your credit history and things of that nature. And the second one is capacity, and that comes down to your income, your employment history, savings, what you have saved up, what are your down payments, where's that coming from? And collateral is the third C, and that's the home that you're looking to purchase. We look at the appraised value of the home, the condition of the home, and attorney handles any title work. So if there is any liens or outstanding judgments, we can get those cleared up before closing. So with credit, we take a look at a primary credit report where we pull all 3 credit scores. And we look at take the middle credit score to qualify you based on that to determine your rate. And so if you're doing multiple applicants on the application, then we do the same thing, take all 3 credit scores, use the middle score, but we have to use the lower of the 2 middle scores from each borrower. And that will determine how you come up with your interest rate. If you have any derogatory, credit, any bankruptcies, foreclosures, late payments, collateral, we have to take a look at that and see what's the time period and make sure that the time period has expired so we can qualify you for a loan here at credit union. The length of, credit history, lenders are looking to see at least 3 trade lines with a 12-month history. So that we know that the borrower is qualified and have a history of credit and paying on time. Take a look at that as far as your credit history. Second is capacity. We take a look at your income. What do you make? And we look at the gross income. And if we take an average of the last 2 years, by taking your last 2 year W-2s, looking at those to come up with the income to qualify you in that. When it talks about base income, we're looking at what do you make, what your gross income, what do you bring, what do you make before taxes? And have a lot of questions about overtime. Can it be counted? Yes, it can be counted, but you have to have a history of making that overtime. So we look at that over 2 years as well. If you make commission income, we average the last 2 years of commissions to see what your income qualifies for. And if you're a self-employed or a 1099, we look at your personal and business tax returns and come up with the income based on your tax returns. And the third C is the collateral. We ordered appraisal, determine the value of the house. The appraiser will go out and look at sales within the area to qualify, to come up with the property of the value of your property. If there's any defects or anything, safety issues, the appraiser will note that, and we'll have to get that clear before we can close on the home. And the attorney's office, they initiate the title search. Make sure there are not any liens to prohibit the title from being transferred to the new owner. So those are the 3 C's that we look at when it comes to qualifying you for credit or mortgage here at the credit union. And we also have a promotion that we currently run into help pay the cost for the appraisal. That's a good thing that we have here at the credit union. So that saves you at least $400 based on the appraised value of your property there.
Now we are going to turn it over to Rebecca Cooper, and she is going to talk about the importance of a realtor. One second, Rebecca, we can't hear you.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, fantastic. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Rebecca Cooper with Atlanta Communities, and I just want to thank the whole team at Credit Union of Georgia for inviting me to participate this evening. Just to start out, when you're first entering the process, first having those thoughts that maybe you're interested in jumping in the market and looking at purchasing a home, there's probably one of 2 places that you'll go first, either to find a lender to get yourself pre-qualified or pre-approved, or to find a real estate agent or a realtor to help you through the process. Doesn't matter which place you start, but those are certainly 2 professionals that you're going to want to touch base with very early in the process. So like Joe mentioned earlier, having that pre-approval letter, especially in the market that we're in right now, that is definitely your ticket to ride, and you're going to want to know what you qualify for, you know, the financial piece to it, how much your closing costs are going to be, how much your cash to close is going to be, what your payments are going to be. Usually that's probably a first question that everybody wants to know is, okay, how much can I spend based on, I want my monthly payment to be X amount. You may start out looking for a realtor, and then, you know, from there, go through the pre-approval process. When you're looking for a realtor, the key is think about the fact that this is probably somebody you're going to be sharing a lot of information with, and you're going to be spending a fair amount of time with. So probably at a minimum 30 days. But I've had clients that I spend, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months to, go through the entire process of finding the right home and, all the way through until we get to closing. And that really depends on you. That depends on your situation. Some people are anxious to go and find something very quickly and need to move quickly, in which case we can make that happen. Other people aren't in such a hurry and they just really want to take their time. So you want to find somebody that you have a good connection with, and obviously someone you trust. So getting referrals to find a realtor is a great way to find somebody that is trustworthy. If you don't happen to know anybody who has, recently bought or sold a home and can't refer a good realtor to you, certainly going online and finding reviews. We look at reviews online for, any service or product that we're looking for, and realtors are really no different. So you can always go online and usually find reviews. As far as who is being represented, a lot of folks don't realize that if you are just kind of surfing online and looking at homes online and you call the number that you see on a website or on a sign, or even if you walk into a new home subdivision, those people are great sources for some basic information on the property, but they represent the seller and they have to watch out for the seller's best interest. They are not representing you as the buyer, and they're not there to look out for your best interest. So you really want to make sure you got somebody in your corner helping you through the process and looking out for your best interest. Typically, the commission for your agent is going to be paid by the seller. And that is something you will want to ask questions of your realtor, but just know that more often than not, that commission is going to be paid by the seller, but you're still going to be able to take advantage of the benefits of having somebody walk you through the process and represent you through the process. So we'll go on to the next slide. Okay, so again, the buying process, of course, as I mentioned, one of the first things you want to do is you want to get pre-approved. The first thing that I do when my clients reach out with me is I do an initial buyer consultation, and we spend about an hour and a half together, depending upon, the buyer. And we go through the entire process. Now, y'all are hearing a lot of this evening, but envision if you weren't on this fantastic webinar that's being put on by the credit union, you probably have a lot of questions. So we sit down, we go through the whole process together, and that also gives us an opportunity to make sure that we're a good match. So I think that's an important piece to the beginning of that process. In that meeting, we talk about what are your needs? What are you looking for? What are you trying to accomplish? And then I'll go ahead and set you up, or your realtor can go ahead and set you up on a search and start sending you homes that match the criteria for what you're looking for. Once you find the home, you're going to make an offer. You're going to negotiate through that offer with the help of your realtor. You're going to hopefully come to an agreement with the seller, and boom, you're under contract. And the next slide. Okay, so when it comes to the process and once you go under contract, so we've found the house, it's the perfect home for you, you've made the offer, you've negotiated through the offer. So what happens next is the next day after you go under contract is when your due diligence period begins. So that is the time that I call the buyer's kind of free look period. That's when you have your home inspections done, you check out the neighborhood, you check out everything about the home, you make sure this is the home that you want to purchase. The nice thing is if something comes back in the home inspection that you're not crazy about or is a deal breaker for you, or that you try to renegotiate, some repairs with the seller and the seller doesn't agree to the repairs you're asking for, you might want to back out of that contract. That's what the due diligence period is for. And you are perfectly within your right to do that. And you don't lose anything if you back out during your due diligence period. It's also a great idea during that time frame to get a quote on homeowners insurance. When you get your quote on homeowners insurance, your homeowners insurance agent can tell you if the property is in a floodplain and if you're going to need additional flood insurance. Once you're out of your due diligence period, you're going to move forward and start getting ready for closing. So obviously you want to keep in close contact with the lender. The lender is going to be asking you for additional information. Always just make sure whatever the lender needs from you, you're just providing that in a timely manner. And the same thing with the attorney, the closing attorney, who you're going to hear from in a little bit. They're going to need some information from you. So again, you're just going to want to stay on top of providing that information. Then as you're getting closer to closing, you'll be setting up your utilities. You'll be wiring your funds to the closing attorney. I'm sure our attorney partner will make you aware of just being careful of fraud when it comes to wiring money. There's ways of protecting yourself, but that's something that we do want to be aware of. And then, of course, closing day is when you sign your papers and you get the keys to your new home. Okay, so one of the questions I get frequently is, okay, what is this going to cost me, and when do I have to start writing checks, or when is money going to start coming out of my account? So the very first thing that you're going to be spending money on in the process, or the first check that you're going to write, is for your earnest money. So at the time that you are making an offer on a property, you're going to have to put up earnest money, which is showing the seller that you're negotiating in good faith. In a typical market, your earnest money is usually about 1% of the purchase price. I will say in the market that we've been in the last few years, that is a negotiable item, and we have seen increases in earnest money. We've seen people offering more than 1%, 2%, 2.5% in earnest money. So that goes up at the time that you're making the offer. But if you close on the property, that becomes a credit back to you. If you don't close on the property and you back out during your due diligence period, you get that money back. The next check that you write, so to speak, or the next payment you make is going to be to your home inspector. So again, during your due diligence period, you're going to hire a home inspector to check out the property for you. So you'll be paying the home inspector at that time. The next thing you'll be doing is paying for your appraisal. Now that is going to be arranged by your lender. So you don't have to contact the appraisal. The lender will do that on your behalf. But typically you're going to pay for your appraisal up front. And then of course at closing is when you're going to be paying the rest of your cash to close. And your cash to close again is going to encompass your down payment, your closing costs, and your prepaids, which is the upfront taxes and insurance that are going to be collected to start your escrow account. So those funds are available when your property tax bill and your annual homeowners insurance bill comes due. Okay, so it's always important to know what the market conditions are when you're getting ready to look for a home, because this tells us a lot about how we negotiate offers. If it's a really, there's tons of homes out there for sale and there's not that many buyers and it's a buyer's market, we negotiate offers very differently than on the flip side where there's very little inventory and there's a lot of buyers and it's a strong seller's market. So this is kind of a history of what we've looked at for the last 4 years. So this is as of the end of February. Of course, that's the most current data that we have for this year. We don't have the end of March yet. But just looking at the number of homes that are for sale, and I just pulled out the 3 counties, Cobb, Cherokee, and Paulding. If you're interested in specific information and numbers for any other areas, I'm always happy to provide that. But you can see in the last several years, inventory has been very, very low. And you can see the drop that we went from 2020 to 2021. Our inventory of homes available went down basically by half. And then from 2021 to 2022, it still was very low. Now, the good news for buyers is it's started to creep up a little bit. I mean, we're taking in the right direction now. But we're still much, much lower than what we would consider a really healthy, balanced market. So we still have an inventory shortage in Atlanta. It's still a very desirable place to be. We've got, great school districts here in Cobb, Cherokee, and Paulding. People want to raise their families here. People want to just be in Metro Atlanta. They come in from different parts of the country and want to be here. So you might hear things on the news about the market across the country. What you hear about things going on across the country doesn't necessarily always reflect what's happening here in our Atlanta market. So I always like to look and educate buyers on what's happening locally here in Atlanta. So again, a little bit of tick up in our inventory, but still it's that supply and demand. We still really do have more buyers and not the amount of inventory that we would like to have for a balanced market right now. So we'll go to the next chart. So this is days on market. So again, you can see in 2020 in all three of our markets, the median days on market, so that's how many days a home stays on the market before it goes under contract. It was, ranging between 20 and 30 days. And then you can see in 21 and 22, it dropped way down. I mean, we were down really below a week for most of that 2-year period. You can see again, now we're starting to, tick back up again. Paulding really went up. I do not anticipate Paulding to stay as high as what you see on this chart. I would anticipate we're coming into the spring selling season and all of those days on market numbers, I would expect to go back down. But it used to be, 4 or 5 years ago, we would tell our sellers, expect your home to be on the market about 3 months before it closes. And you can see clearly we're way under that 3-month period here, which still indicates, the market still favors the seller at this point. And the next slide. Okay. Median home sales price in the area. So again, you can tell just by looking at the chart, obviously we've had a steady increase. I've had quite a few people ask or comment, I'm gonna just rent and wait for prices to come down. I will tell you from what I have heard and from my experience, I don't see prices dropping drastically in the near future, simply because of the economics of supply and demand, because we still just really don't have the inventory that we need to support the buyers that we have. But you'll notice from 2020 to 2021 and from 2021 to 2022, those are really big jumps from year to year. And then if you go from last year to this year, there's still an increase, but it's an increase at a much slower rate. So yes, values are still increasing. Yes, prices are still going up. They're not going up at the rate that they were going up over the last several years. So that's a positive for home buyers. So like I said, we are starting to see a little bit of a shift, but with prices continuing to increase, honestly, you are still, if you're thinking, is this a good time to buy or am I better off, waiting a year? Keep in mind, if prices continue to go up and the interest rate stays, about the same as what we're at now, that home that you wait a year to buy could potentially cost you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 more than it does today, which means your payment is going to be higher. The amount of money you're going to need to close is more. So it's just important to understand the market you're in and to have somebody help you navigate that market and the whole process. So thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Now we are going to turn the presentation over to, I was about to turn over to Tim, and then Tim would have been lost. I'm going to turn it over to Alan Rainwater to talk about the home appraisal process.
Good evening. My name is Alan Rainwater. I've been an appraiser in the Cobb County area for over 30 years. And you probably won't see me in this whole process because you're not in the home yet. But once you, as Rebecca has explained, once the application is done and the sales contract is completed, I will get a copy of the sales contract to go to the property, do an inspection. It's not as thorough as the home inspector. I will go through the home, photograph the rooms, and then compare your home to other closed sales in the area. With this market here, I typically don't look at pending sales or listings, just what someone has dealt and closed on. That's the indication of the market, not what might happen. I look at what has happened. The process most of my work is done in research, analysis at the computer. And you'll get a copy of this report. It's usually 25 to 30 pages long with photographs and exhibits. And if you ever have any questions on those reports, my email and phone number are on the report. And that's all I can add tonight.
Okay, thank you, Alan. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tim Reed, and he is going to talk about the home inspection process.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to talk to you tonight. First of all, I talk louder than most everybody in the room here, so you might want to go ahead and turn your volume down a minute, just to be on the safe side. Want to talk to you about why you would hire a home inspector. We're going to go through a couple things here as far as who you would hire, what we do, and those sort of things. But first of all, let's talk about why you would hire a home inspector. Home inspector is going to come into the property and be pretty invasive. When I do my home inspections, I'm going to go through every square inch of the house that I can get to, whether it be the crawl space, the attic, closets, underneath cabinets, because these are where we find the issues that are going to cost you money. Most of your home inspections are going to range between $300 and $500, and I have rarely done a home inspection where they have not reaped back at least the cost of the inspection, if not much more. I had one recently where the agent actually called me as well as the client, and they were ecstatic because they got $14,000 off the sale price of the house based on what we had in the report for them. And I don't think the agent quite knew she was going to get that much off on the cost of the house. But once they were presented with all of the information, with the photographs and those sort of things, it's a little hard to dispute if you have a home inspector that knows his job. The reason you have a home inspector instead of having someone in your family, you know, your father-in-law or Uncle Bubba, somebody like that, is because we're going to find things they're not going to see. Everybody has an area of expertise. We tend to look at the property as a whole. So we're going to go through your electrical system. We're going to go through your roof, your HVAC system, your water heater. We're going to check your plumbing system. We're going to make sure your water pressure is at the correct pressure. It should be between 40 and 80 PSI. Why is that important? Because if you go spend, say, $2,500, $3,000 on a new refrigerator and dishwasher for your kitchen, and it fails because of too much water pressure, it does void the warranty. And those are things that you could find out during a home inspection. So there's a number of things that we're going to go over when we do this. Another aspect of what we do, specifically my company and a lot of your upper end home inspection companies, is we employ thermal technology. So we will use an infrared camera to scan your ceilings, your walls, your floors, to see if we can find any issues that were hidden as far as water intrusion, energy loss, things such as that. See a lot of issues before I get into the attic with a thermal scan. I can tell exactly where we're missing insulation before I ever set foot in the attic, because the infrared scan will show me these things. The infrared camera itself is about $2,500. So generally you're not going to have your fly-by-night inspectors investing in that type of technology. So again, these are the type of things that you would hire a home inspector for. We also employ drone technology for your roof now. We see many more issues with roofs than we've ever seen before. We can actually look down the tube of the chimney with these things. So we use a lot of technology that you know, people who are close to in your family are not going to employ, and therefore they're not going to find the issues that we find. A good home inspector is going to give you a report within 24 hours. Mine are sent by midnight that same day or by 9 o'clock the next morning, depending on how involved the report is. You should also get the report in writing. There's a number of home inspectors that want to sell you their opinion, but if you want it in writing, it's going to cost you more. Make sure that's not the type of home inspector you're getting when you line up your home inspector. That type of home inspectors you guys want to look for are going to be ASHI certified. That's ASHI. That stands for American Society of Home Inspectors. Now, this is the only licensing group that is recognized in all 50 states. And unfortunately, in our state, it's not required that home inspectors are licensed. Therefore, there are a lot of fly-by-night home inspectors out there. If you're buying a new home, they will not let your inspector on property if he does not have the proper credentials. So definitely make sure that you find out who your inspector is going to be and what their credentials are to make sure that you're not their first inspection. Had a guy yesterday tell me that he had his inspection done. His inspector told him right then the inspection, "Hey, this is my first inspection. I hope you think I did a good job." You're gonna want to know that before you get to that point. You're gonna want to know if it's his first inspection or not, because that's not really a good benefit from a home inspector. The other things we're going to go through the home is we're going to look at your foundation. We're going to look at the major issues as well as the small issues. A good home inspector will counsel you on what those are, so you know what things should cost when you're getting these things repaired. A good home inspector should be able to help you with that knowledge as well. We are not contractors, we are inspectors, but most of us, specifically us older guys, have done contracting in our past, and we do know what these things should cost, and that is very helpful when you're dealing with a home inspector. When do you use this? You want to get us lined up, like they showed you on the chart here a minute ago, right behind the appraisal. When we do an inspection, we might find things that are going to cause you to rethink your situation on the home. This happens all the time. I had a situation earlier this week where a couple were just totally in love with the house. Everything was fine with it. They're all excited about it until I showed up. And unfortunately, there were a number of issues that were hidden. This was a house that was being flipped. And when we get a house that's being flipped, we're extremely investigative, let's put it that way, on what we're looking at, because we do see a lot of problems with those type homes. And if you don't have those homes inspected, then it's definitely a buyer beware situation. After we went through the home, we found out the home needed a new roof, a new furnace, a new water heater. Most of the plumbing was not correct. So needless to say, they were going to rethink their decision on that house. I don't like to be the guy, excuse me, that dashes people's dreams, but the way I look at it is I'm keeping you from getting into a costly situation down the road. A lot of times I'll have things on a report that will point to an issue that I could see becoming a problem. If I do a new home inspection and I see an issue with drainage in the yard and I put it in the report, the builder usually says, "Oh, your inspector's crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about." But that's fine, because those people have a 1-year warranty on a new home. And as soon as we have the rainy season, I tell them, get out there and get some pictures. And then we're going to go back to the builder, and then they're going to get the drainage system put in. They should have put in the first place. That's much easier process if you had a home inspection on the front end. So these are all reasons why you should really consider having a home inspection. A lot of people tend to gloss over this part of the process, and it really is not the part you want to gloss over. Because the type situations that we find can sometimes be very, very costly. For instance, a roof, just a basic roof on a house is going to run you around $10,000. So if you're buying a house and you think the roof, in this situation the other day, they were told the roof was 5 years old, the roof was 25 years old. So these are the type of things that we find and the things that are to your benefit. You really want to try to get in touch with your home inspector as soon as you can. I've done this for a long time. Most inspectors that are experienced, they're going to be booked up usually about a week out. So you definitely want to try to get on the schedule as soon as you can. Don't be afraid of your realtor referring you a home inspector. This is where the majority of my business comes from. These realtors understand what I do, and they are looking out for their clients when they're referring me. They're not worried about me killing the deal. They're worried about their client, buying a home that's not up to par. So if you have a real estate agent that's looking out for your best interest and they refer a home inspector to you, do your due diligence on that home inspector, but they're likely looking out for your best interest. So do keep that in mind. I did a home inspection for Rebecca, who just spoke to you today, as a matter of fact. So when these things are pointed out to you, you want to make sure you understand what is the most important issues in a report. My reports all have obviously a report. There's built photographs. Alan said his are about 30 pages long. Mine are about 70 to 100 pages long. So, and that's because of the photographs and the thoroughness of what we go through. However, like I said, you want to make sure you understand what you're looking at. You want to focus on the 3 S's in any inspection report. And that's going to be safety, systems, and structure. That's where your money is. Excuse me. Those are the most important items of any home inspection. So those are definitely the areas you want to look at. Beyond that, you will be dealing with cosmetic issues, deferred maintenance, those type issues, which all homes have. So as long as you understand in the process what is the most important things to focus on, what should be negotiated on, that sort of thing. Because that is what the home inspector is there for, to give you that information so that you and your realtor can negotiate the cost of the home if there are things that need to be taken off because of what we come up with on the home inspection. Most home inspectors are going to be able to answer any questions, like I said, as far as cost, what it would take to fix certain things, how long it would take to fix certain things. If you have a home inspector that's not forthcoming with that type of information, again, you might want to look for another home inspector, because part of what we do is find everything that's wrong. But the other part of what we do is communicate that, as far as what's a big issue, what's a minor issue, what can be, dealt with later on, those type of things. So don't skip over the home inspection process when you're getting ready to buy a home. It can be one of the most important steps, simply because the issues that you do not see that are hidden can be very, very expensive. Sometimes the ones you're looking at are more expensive than what you can imagine. If you look at the photographs there, you see the first photo on the left is where someone has put in some makeshift piers and a crawl space to support a sagging floor. Those type things, there's codes and ways those things should be done by what we call standard building practices. And when we get into homes where these things have been done in a substandard manner, let's put it that way, then that can cost you a lot of money in the future. So those type of things you definitely want to pay attention to. I'm sure you see the leaning chimney there. That is not a cheap fix. Just so you know, chimney issues can get into the $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 range. So those type of things are very, very important that you understand what you're buying. If you notice in the bottom left corner, if that's a retaining wall in the house that you're buying run, that's going to be a pretty expensive problem. If that's a foundation of a home, then you're really in trouble. But again, these are the type of things that we find when we do what we do. So I was just telling the participants here a little earlier that, my friends always tell me, oh, you got a great job, man. You have a lot of fun doing what you do. Look at all the technology you use. Yeah, but we also have to crawl around with the spiders and the snakes and the crawl spaces to determine what's down there. And believe me, we find a lot of problems below these homes. Anything from, plumbing issues that can be very expensive to fix, to foundation issues, to rodent issues, things that can be health hazards. So again, don't shortcut the process. Make sure you get a good home inspector, and make sure that he is certified. That is definitely something you want to make sure when you get your home inspector. I will be sending some information to everybody that's participating as far as some sound reports. So you'll be able to see what a home inspection report should look like, which will give you a good idea as to what you need to be focusing on when you're actually looking at homes as well. Thank you again for letting me speak to you. And if anybody has any questions for me whatsoever, please feel free to reach out. They will have our information here for you to call us, and you will not bother me. There's no such thing as a stupid question.
Great, thank you so much, Tim. Now I'm going to unmute Willie, and this is Willie Phelan. He is with Sherman and Phelan, and he is going to talk to you about the closing attorney process. I think you may still be on mute, Willie.
All right, I believe I'm now unmuted.
Yes.
Amanda, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey guys, I'm Willie Phelan. I'm the closing attorney. And I hope your bracket is looking better than mine right now. A lot of upsets in March Madness this afternoon. But yeah, let's talk about what closing attorneys do in this process. And we come in at the very end. Once you've picked out a house, you have a lender, and we get you to the finish line, so to speak. So once you have a contract and you got the credit union on board with a new loan, your agent will send us a copy of the contract, and we'll get a title order from the credit union, and that is our instructions to get started running title to the property. So that's really the first thing we do, is perform a title search, and we'll talk about that in a second. Other things that we do in the process, we conduct the closing, where everybody sits down, buyers and sellers together, to sign documents. We handle all the money, and like Rebecca was saying earlier, wire frauds has become more prevalent in this industry, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. We issue title insurance, and we record all the deeds with the county. And next slide is about title searches. So there's really two main goals to doing a title search. The first one is to confirm ownership of the property, and the other is to identify liens. And when we talk about liens, it's not only judgment liens, like you may at first think, but it's also other mortgages that may be on the property from prior owners or current owners. It could be taxes that are due. It could be a lot of things that we need to clear up before we go to closing. And when we say confirm ownership, so if that may sound kind of funny, well, the seller signed the contract, so I'm sure the seller owns the house. Well, we've seen any number of circumstances where the people signing the contract may not own the house or may not be the only owners of a house. A lot of times properties are held in trusts, or there's estate issues. Sometimes we see one heir, one property owner that wants to sell, and others that may not know about it or may not want to sell. So part of what we do is to determine who's on title to the property. Now, all this information is available from public records. Deed records are public, so are taxes, property taxes. So we search those records to help us in our search. Once we do find liens or other mortgages on the property, we'll then work with the sellers to help get payoffs. So we'll need to work closely with them to talk to their old lenders to get the payoff on their old mortgage. We work with different tax offices to get payoffs on any taxes that are due. Same thing with any kind of judgment liens or other 5As that may be on the property. We'll work with those creditors to get those lien amounts paid off at closing. Because what our goal is to provide you, the buyer, and the credit union as the lender with clear marketable title to the property. And next slide. So then we conduct the closing. So what we do starting early off in the process is to send out what we call information sheets to buyer and seller. A little bit more information on the seller side because that includes any kind of lien information they may have. That gives us everybody's contact information, phone and email. And we work with the lender to figure out when the loan is clear to close and everybody's approved. At that point, we talk to the real estate agent to make sure the different contingencies in the contract have been met. And then we schedule a time and place for the buyer and seller to meet so that we can sit down and sign all the documents. Credit union is going to provide a good bulk of the documents, the loan documents. We do prepare a number of title documents and deeds that we have people sign at closing. We do work with the credit union closely to put together a closing disclosure. And that's what we now call the settlement statement. If you've heard that phrase before, HUD-1, the closing disclosure is kind of the newer form in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But that has all the money, all the figures on it, and we'll show you how much you need to bring to closing. The actual closing ceremony, or the time that we sit down with the parties, oftentimes I'll hear buyers and sellers say, last time we did this, we were here for 3 or 4 hours. And I like to tell them, not in my office. It usually takes, I don't know, anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. If we get talky, it may take up to an hour. But that's generally about the max length of time that you'll be spending in a closing. And then after the closing, we're responsible for dispersing all the funds, issuing title insurance, and recording deeds. So let's talk about funds for a little bit. I think Rebecca told you that you're going to be responsible for sending over some down payment money which, would include, some closing costs, or some other funds that were required by the credit union for you to bring as a buyer. Oftentimes that money is going to need to be wired. We require wires for anything over $5,000. So you'd have to go to wherever your depository institution is, whether it's a credit union or a bank, and wire money to us, and we will provide you with wire instructions. Well, one thing that's really been growing in our industry over the last few years is wire fraud, where fraudsters will get or intercept emails. They will pose as either a closing attorney or a real estate agent that's involved in the transaction and send out fake wire instructions. And once you wire that money to a fraudster, that money is gone. Wires are very hard to pull back. It's not like an ACH transfer or a credit card payment. You can't really it's very, very hard to dispute. And quite likely that money's gone if it's wired to the wrong place. So what we strongly suggest is that if anybody wires us money, call the office first to confirm our wire instructions. And whether it's our office or wiring money to anybody else, strongly suggest that you find the phone number for that office that you're sending money to, and don't use the phone number on the email that you got. Look for an independent source, whether it's online, their website, whether maybe you've talked to somebody at that office before on the phone. Call that office and verify, at least the last 4 digits of those wire instructions, so that you're sending it to the right place, because you sure would hate to send it to a fraudster. Along those lines, one thing that we're doing now that I noticed some other law firms are doing as far as holding earnest money. A lot of law firms now are holding earnest money as opposed to brokers, real estate brokers. And we can actually take up to $10,000 through an ACH deposit on our website through a secure system. So it's just hopefully a little bit easier way in which to transmit those funds. ACHs can be pulled back, but again, if there's any questions as to how that works or the security of it, please call our office. And if you're working with a different closing attorney, they offer that service. I'm sure they'd be happy to help walk you through that process if that's available to you. And next slide talks about title insurance. So most all closing attorneys are going to be title insurance agents, which means that they can issue a title insurance policy for one or more title insurance underwriters. We happen to have agencies with 3 different underwriters. And there's 2 kinds of title insurance. There's lender's insurance and owner's insurance. So lender's title insurance is for lenders, and they get it every time they get a new loan, whether it's on a purchase or a refinance. They always have title insurance to ensure that they have a first lien position on the property, which means that there's nobody else in front of them, whether it be another mortgage company, lender, or FIFA or judgment lien. Now, owner's title insurance is optional in Georgia, although I will say that probably 95% or greater of our buyers do purchase an owner's title policy. That ensures that you have good title to the property, that there's no other competing ownership interests. There's no other liens out there that you don't know about. It's a one-time premium, and for the amount of insurance you get, it's really pretty cheap. Just a quick owner's title insurance story. We're working with another credit union they're doing a HELOC for a member, and they asked us to help with a title search. Well, we found a old security deed from the seller's So the member bought the house, their seller had a mortgage on the property. Well, that mortgage never got paid off at closing. It's still on the property. And this particular buyer did not get owner's title insurance. So right now there's an $18,000 second mortgage in somebody else's name on their property that they have to deal with. Owner's title insurance would cover that problem. So I really hate it for those folks. But if they had bought owner's title insurance when they purchased the property, then they would not have this $18,000 headache. Now, if you buy an owner's title policy at the same time that the lender gets their lender's policy at your purchase closing, you do get a discount, kind of called a simultaneous issue rate. So that's something good to look into as well, and ask your closing attorney to make sure that you get that simultaneous issue discount. And on the next slide, so the last thing we do is we record the deeds. So we'll record the new warranty deed conveying the property to use the new buyer, and then we'll record the new security deed, which secures the mortgage or provides security to the lender in exchange for their loan. Once this warranty deed is recorded, we will send the original to you. We are now e-recording. Almost every county in Georgia allows us to e-record deeds. So the process is pretty quick. Usually takes no more than a day or two to e-record a deed. I've like to warn folks about this at closings. You're going to get a lot of really slick looking junk mail. It's going to look very official, and it's going to have people wanting you to spend $75 to over $100 to get a certified copy of your deed. We can go ahead and throw that away because the closing attorney is going to send you the original for free. I actually got a letter of my own like that not long ago, and I keep that in my closing conference room now just to show people what it looks like. So that is all I had for this evening. But I really appreciate your time, and thanks for coming out tonight for the home buyer seminar.
Great, thank you so much, Willie. I am now going to turn the last little bit over to Joe and Bakari to just kind of give you a few little home buying tips. And then just a friendly reminder, if you have any questions, just use the chat feature within Teams and we will answer those questions. And then I know a few of y'all submitted questions online prior to the presentation, so we'll cover those as well.
All right, thanks, Amanda. First tip on a new home purchase, just have to remember that everything's negotiable. The price, the closing costs, the repairs, all that's negotiable. So work with your realtor and come up with something that's reasonable. If there's something on the inspection that shows, whatever the issue might be, you can do one of two things. You either have the seller repair it with a licensed contractor or accept money so that you can fix whatever the issue is. I always say if it's a squeaky door, that's something that you can fix yourself. Try and get some money out of the seller so that they don't have to fix it. But if it's a crack in the foundation, that's a different story. But just remember that everything's negotiable. Most times, the way the market is now, it's a seller's market, which Rebecca alluded to, but it's really a seller's market. But don't be afraid to ask for either some seller paid closing costs or whatever issues come up on the inspection report. Because remember, if the door squeaks, if you don't buy the house, the next person's going to find out that the door squeaks as well. So at some point, the seller's going to have to fix that squeaky door, and I just use that as an example. You can also extend the due diligence period for the inspection. If the inspector can't get out there for whatever reason, or he has to go back out and relook at something, if he thinks there's going to be a drainage issue, which Tim alluded to earlier as well, you might want to wait for a rainy day, which is going to be tomorrow. But anyway, you must want to wait for a rainy day and go out to the house and see what it looks like after a rainstorm. And you can also make the contract contingent, which Rebecca will do, you know, based on a satisfactory appraisal. We will share the appraisal with you and you only. I typically don't send it to the real estate agent or obviously to the other side, to the listing agent or to the seller. I send that to you, and that is your copy. We're actually paying for the appraisal, like Picard said. But we will send that to you. If you want to forward that to your realtor or to your home insurance company or whoever you want to forward it to, that's up to you. But just as a practice, I like to send the appraisal directly to you and to you only. And then what you do with it from there is up to you. I made that mistake once where I sent it, what I thought was our realtor, but it was actually the listing agent. And the appraisal came in higher than the sales price. So I had a little issue to dance around with at the closing table. But anyway, we try and be careful to send that to you only. Bakari, you have any home buying tips?
I think you covered everything.
Okay. All right, we're gonna open that up to, we have some additional tips there. Let's look at that. Oh, the last one, obtain a survey on the property. We didn't talk about this today. What a survey is, that tells you the boundaries of your property. It's not an appraisal, it's not a home inspection. It's gonna tell you where the 4 corners or sometimes 5 corners of the property is. It is not required that you get a survey. In Florida it is, but here in Georgia it's not. So a survey will tell you that the neighbor's fence is on your property or vice versa, or that there's an easement going through the driveway or anything like that. So if there's an issue that might pop up, you may want to order a survey, but we can talk about that during the loan process, or your realtor might have some good ideas. There is a plat survey at the county website that will show you approximately what the boundaries are, but an actual survey where they go out and mark the corners with an iron pin, and then they'll provide you with a report. So if you are going to put a pull in after the fact, or you're going to put a fence up, it's probably good to get that done before closing, because what Willie will do is he will incorporate that survey into his title insurance. So if the neighbor's property is on your side, you're insured against that, or vice versa. We've seen some where the house was built on someone else's property. So there's a lot of horror stories when it comes to surveys. In the middle section there is, if you don't have a real estate agent, our closing attorney will review the contract for you. The key phrase there is we will look at that, and Willie would do that free of charge if you don't have a real estate agent, but he will look at that if it's a for sale by owner, and he will give you some ideas on what to put in there and what not to put in there. But remember, the key there is to do that before you sign it. Once you sign it, then it's kind of too late. Yeah, then there's the intangible tax. It's the second bullet point down. So that's real important as well. That will save you a lot of money. Yeah, let's see. REO homes, real estate owned. Boy, we haven't seen those in a while. What that is if a bank forecloses on the house, then they call that REO, real estate owned. That goes on our books as a real estate owned, and then we try and sell it. Knock wood, we haven't had any foreclosures. Boy, I don't even know, maybe 5, 6, 7 years. It's been a while. But if you are in the market to find a foreclosure house, I would get with Rebecca and she can do a search out in MLS or MLS to find out if the property is owned by a bank. That's going to be your best way to do it. You can call around to banks and credit unions and ask if they have any, but typically what would happen is if we had a foreclosure, we would immediately call either Rebecca or another realtor and have them list the home for us. We have no desire to be a realtor to try and sell a piece of property. Our goal is to get it back on the market as quick as possible. But like I say, we've not had any of those in a long time. Short sale, same thing. And that's if someone's kind of having financial difficulties and they owe $100,000 on the house and the house is worth $3,000. Sometimes the lender will say, hey, you sell it for $90,000, we're able to release our lien so you can pay it. A lot of times the bank will, or credit union or whoever has the property will take a small loss instead of foreclosing on the property. It does get expensive to foreclose on a property, take ownership, pay the taxes, pay the insurance, pay this, pay that, and then, you know, the roof leaks, and there's a lot of issues that happen in a short sale. So our goal, again, is to get the property back on the market as quick as possible. But if we have someone that would buy it before it goes to foreclosure, that would be what's called a short sale.
And then just, this is the last slide, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers. But we will provide this presentation to you, so you don't have to write down all of this information. But this gives you all the contact numbers and email addresses and things of that nature for the panel that spoke today. So we have the Mortgage Services Department, Joe and Bakari here at the credit union. These are their direct lines as well as their email addresses. Rebecca Cooper with Cooper Southern Homes with Atlanta Communities. This is her direct email as well as her direct cell phone number. Our home appraiser, Alan Rainwater, his email address as well as his cell phone number. Our home inspector today, Tim Reed, that is his direct line. And then I apologize, Willie, this wasn't, I missed a page right there. So I'll update this, and that Willie Phelan is who actually spoke today. That's his email address and his phone number, but not his name. So I'll get that fixed. But I'll send that out to y'all tomorrow, along with this recorded presentation. And then is anyone has any questions, please use the chat feature. Do not see. Okay, well, I do not see any questions today, but again, you'll have all the contact numbers and information for the people that spoke today, and you can contact them directly and email them or give them a call. So thank y'all so much for attending our presentation today. We do these throughout the year. Sometimes we focus on home buying, different retirements and things like that. So keep your eye on your email, and we will send things out to you periodically. And we hope y'all all have a great evening and a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.